Okay. Okay. Would like to call to order the November 6, 2017 Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners work session. Welcome, everyone. First item on our agenda is approval of the work session agenda, which you all have before you, and that includes the changes on page 128. Do I hear a motion that we approve the agenda as presented? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. For those who may have noticed, I will mention Commissioner Poole will not be with us tonight. I think she is not feeling well, so we hope she feels better. Next item are discussion items with no action tonight, and we are very happy to have with us for a Cabarrus County 2017 fair update, Kate Sharp. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thanks for giving me a couple minutes to give you a quick update on the 2017 fair. Overall, it was a huge success. It takes a village to put on the fair, and you have a phenomenal village of hardworking employees willing to be away from their families. Hundreds of volunteers and vendors, and we were really happy with how things went. Even though that lovely Hurricane Irma came through, we did not get the brunt that was expected, thank goodness. We did not open one day because of the outer bands that we got, and of course, leading into that Monday that we had those outer bands, we didn't open. As many of you may be aware, many of our stores did not even have bottled water. The media was focused on making sure everybody was prepared, which is excellent, but certainly folks weren't waking up in the morning thinking, this is a good day to go to the fair. So we were slightly impacted. Just a little bit of background each year based on how well we do revenue and expense-wise, and as expenses increase, we do constantly reevaluate where we are with our fees, if it's making sense. We pride ourselves on the fair paying for itself every year. And even though we are going to come in a little bit under what we budgeted in revenue, we'll still pay for ourselves, but it is something that we're always keeping a close eye on. We certainly don't want to raise ticket prices or vendor rates unless it's necessary. As long as we're consistently continuing to pay for ourselves, that is not a concern, but it is something that obviously we're looking a little bit further into after this year's fair, because no matter how well everyone plans and how hard everyone works, we are at the whim of the weather. But we did have a substantial number of folks who responded to our surveys. We got a tremendous amount of very, very positive feedback. I was telling Mr. Marshall earlier, a lot of times you don't get phone calls from people saying thank you, but we're continuing to get phone calls from folks who participated in our programs at the fair, who are receiving their premium checks, thanking us and our staff and the volunteers and your other county employees who worked really hard. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to talk to you about it, since the hurricane did come through, and you're going to see maybe some more conservative revenue budget numbers come through during the budget process as a result, knowing that obviously the weather does impact things. But from our standpoint, the fair was an overall success given what we were up against. We should have been coming way under budget, and we're not, and that's because the community still did want to circle around the fair and support the fair, and we were really pleased with things. Does anybody have any comments or questions?
I'm just going to ask, is there the attendance seems to sort of spike back and forth. Other than the hurricane, is there any other reason why maybe attendance would have been following the every other year trend of?
Most of it seems to trend very closely with the weather. This year we had some other unique challenges. The first Friday we were open, 4 high school football games were going on in Charlotte. The Rowan County Fair opened on our last weekend. There were some other fairs and festivals that popped up in the area that are brand new, and we're seeing that across the board. I mean, I'm sure you're seeing it when you just turn on your TV. We are in the festival mayhem. Everybody's creating their own beer and wine and other types of festivals that we're competing with on the weekend, which is our heaviest time when the most people come. But the weather for us is the biggest impact. I was really surprised how much we weren't impacted by those other things, but folks were certainly focused on that. And even though we did open on Tuesday, the rain continued through Tuesday up until we opened. So again, folks were waking up Tuesday, kind of making sure that their homes were okay. Thank goodness they were. But they weren't thinking, this is going to be a beautiful day to go to the fair. All of a sudden, the skies opened up maybe 15 minutes before we opened that day. So we did have folks, but essentially, 5 of the 9 days of the fair, there was weather on everybody's minds.
Well, you had a beautiful day to open the fair. I was happy to be out there, and there was a big crowd, and I know some of you were there as well. It's amazing the tremendous job that you guys do and the number of volunteers that you're able to motivate to be there as well. So thank you very much. I think on behalf of the citizens of Cabarrus County, you do a tremendous job, and it is very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Kate? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we move on to discussion items for action at the November 20th meeting. First up, 4.1, we have been requested to adopt a proclamation recognizing World Pancreatic Cancer Day on November 16th in order to bring attention to this cancer and the need for a cure. This is coming to us. That will occur before our regular meeting. So if it's agreeable to the board, I'll read the proclamation, and then if you would like, we can suspend our rules and make a motion to adopt this proclamation. World Pancreatic Cancer Day 2017 proclamation. Whereas in 2017, an estimated 53,670 people will be diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the United States, and 43,090 will die from the disease. Whereas pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers, is currently the 3rd leading cause of cancer death in the United States, and is projected to become the 2nd leading cause around 2020. Whereas pancreatic cancer is the only major cancer with a 5-year relative survival rate in the single digits at just 9%. Whereas when symptoms of pancreatic cancer present themselves, it is generally in later stages, and 71% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first year of their diagnosis, while 91% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first 5 years. Whereas approximately 1,350 deaths will occur in North Carolina in 2017, whereas pancreatic cancer is the 7th most common cause of cancer-related death across the world, whereas there were an estimated 367,000 new pancreatic cancer cases diagnosed in 2015. Whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of Cabarrus County are enhanced as a direct result of increased awareness about the symptoms and risk factors of pancreatic cancer and research into early detection, causes, and effective treatments. And now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Commissioners designates November 16th, 2017 as World Pancreatic Cancer Day in Cabarrus County. Do I hear a motion that we adopt this proclamation? Well, first we have to have a motion to suspend the rules.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
In memory of a former coworker of mine, Maggie Girdwood, I would gladly make a motion that we suspend the rules and vote on this proclamation tonight.
Okay, do I hear a second to that motion? Okay, we have a motion and a second that we suspend the rules. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And now I'll entertain a motion that we adopt this proclamation. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no, and that motion passes, and we're happy to do that. Next up is 4.2, Cabarrus County Schools, and we have Tim Louder, Kelly Klutz, and Susan Fearington. And we'd be happy to have Brian Cohn come up and join as well.
They're good, Steve. They got it all covered.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing us to be here. As you see, you received a letter, I guess, from our chairman, Mr. Barry Shoemaker, indicating the budget concerns we have for the school coming up here, bidding in, I guess, February, March. And so we want to make sure we got early and talked about that to make sure you understood where the budget was and get your approval for that budget revision before we get into final contract and final design. We estimate that the project came in at about 125,000 square feet program space. A lot of that program space addition was because of some of the class size requirements that the state passed last year, which is kind of one of those non-funded mandates that kind of give you every once in a while, which required us to have, two additional kindergarten, 2 additional first grade and second grade in order to beat the class size and spread the kids out and still have the 940 kids design size for the school. And in doing that, and we also talked to the town of Harrisburg. The property we have will require us to have a utility extension beyond that to allow us to extend water to the site. We are required to bring the water to the site. They will not participate in that. And the third thing, obviously, is, engineering. We came in originally at the architect engineering fees was over our budget to start with, and it's just to catch up the budget for the entire thing, so we have our monies for the second phase of the project, which is the construction administration side on the back side. So it's a summary of the request.
Okay, questions,
Yeah.
commissioners?
So the $4 million for the square footage or the, needed because of the mandated, is, how many classrooms did that require? Or
We have 6 additional classrooms in the process. However, not all that 15,000 additional square foot is classroom.
That's what I was
Obviously, we expanded some areas to make sure we had plenty of room for the recreation, make sure our gymnasium was sized to make sure it was used for recreational use. And then we also had, we do have a 2-story retaining wall situation designed because of the topography on the property we bought. But another reason is, one, this was budgeted originally at like $185 a square foot, but we're trending to see that probably by the time bid day, we're probably going to expect bids near the $200 per square foot mark. So that's probably the bulk of the difference.
So is that full $4 million due to the new law, or some of it is and some of it's not?
Some of it's due to the bid climate being $185 versus $200 per square foot total, and then the additional square footage.
So how much would you estimate because of the new law of that portion?
Probably
of $4
about,
million?
15,000 times
200?
$200 a square foot.
Okay, thank you.
So 15,000.
About $350,000 of it.
How many?
Probably about $350,000 I would estimate overall. Is
350,000.
that right? Did I do the math correctly there? I'm not doing the math in my head. $3 million, so $3 million. I left a zero out, $3 million, yes.
Yeah.
3/4 of
Yeah.
it, 3/4 of it is for your classroom. Here you go. How about that?
Well, and I think for the benefit of those people watching on television, if you hear folks talking about, well, the General Assembly decreased classroom size, most people would think, well, that's a good thing. And it wasn't a large number of children.
It's about 3.
It depends on each grade level. It's
Right.
just a little bit different, but it's about 2 to 3 students per grade level.
2
that
to
they
3
reduced it.
students per grade level. The average person probably say, well, that's a good thing. That's something, but they don't really, and didn't either say, well, that's gonna cost us an additional $3 million on just one elementary school. So it makes a big impact.
It's kind of a double whammy too, sir, because even though they reduced the class size, they didn't reduce the classroom size.
Right.
The classroom size is still 1,015 square feet for a kindergarten class, even though you only had 16 kids in it.
Right.
Versus before, you could have 18, 19 kids in it. So that, and then all of a sudden, 16 kids, don't take too many classes per kid. You got to have 2 and 3 more classrooms in a hurry, it's, you know, additional classrooms in a hurry. So that's what happens.
So that's gonna have an over $3 million impact on this project, but it's gonna have an impact on every elementary school in Cabarrus County, additional mobile units or additional space utilization, which we're already in a space crunch.
Yes, sir. You saw quite a bit of impact this past year with our mobile units. A lot of our mobile units went to add additional classrooms at the elementary school level would be able to accommodate that class size.
Right, so it makes me wonder if the General Assembly understands the cost when they pass some of these regulations.
I think the School Superintendent's Association has pretty much made that abundantly clear,
Well,
I think.
I think to answer his question was, no, they didn't understand that
After the fact.
initially. But
Now
do
they
they
do.
now? I think they do now.
Right, right,
And they may change that requirement, but at that point in time, it's going to be beyond our design review and
right, right.
construction.
The thing to keep in mind is most districts aren't growing the way that we are, and most
Right.
districts have space. So it doesn't impact a lot of the districts like it does a growing district.
Right.
So there's less of us than there are of them.
Very good point, yes. Okay, any other questions, commissioners?
Just one. Tim, when is the school slated to open? I'm assuming August 19,
Yes, sir, 2019.
and that's the same year the high school's opening too, I
Yes, sir,
believe,
we'll
is
have
that
an
right?
elementary school in the southwestern portion of the county and a centralized high school at the same time.
Thanks.
The utility cost, you said water. Is it water and sewer, or is you've already got access to sewer?
Sewer's already on site.
Okay,
We're
so this is
we're
just the
annexed into
water.
the town of Harrisburg in order to have access to utilities, but according to their policies, you have to extend the water line if it should not be there. There's about 1,500 feet, I think, of water line has to be extended down the shoulder of the road, 12-inch water line. The good news is we have good pressure, we have good flow, so therefore we should be in pretty good shape by having to just extend one line.
And the water line was partially extended by the Bloom development, which is just to the north of this. Of course, they're also producing students that'll be going to this school.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank y'all very much, we appreciate it.
Okay, next item is 4.3, Kannapolis City Schools request, and we're happy to have Will Crabtree with us.
Good afternoon. I'm here tonight to request funds for a matching grant that we received for McKnight Child Development Center. This was a federal grant that we received. It's a 75-25 grant, 75 funds from federal grant, 25% local match. This would be used to upgrade the HVAC system in this building and also provide restroom facilities for the children there. So we would be asking for a matching amount of $85,000 to be able to accomplish that. I'll open it up if anyone has questions.
Okay, questions for Will? And we did discuss this a little bit last month. Commissioner Shue had brought this to our attention. So it's not coming to us fresh.
Well, I'm glad to see you guys get the grant, for one thing. That's $255,000 that we don't have to pay. And when it comes to paying, I'd rather us pay $85,000 than the whole boat. So I appreciate Pam and the county manager and everyone that participated in finding this money so that you guys can just keep moving right along and look for some more grants.
We definitely are. We definitely are. I appreciate everyone's work here also. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, 4.4, active living in parks. And we are delighted to have Londa Strong with us.
I'm delighted to be here as well. What we have, I mean that in all sincerity. What we have tonight, the matching incentive grant, second phase. As you may remember, a few months ago, I believe it was July, when we had our first phase, and we did not have enough requests to take all of the $100,000. And just as a reminder, the matching incentive grant program provides seed monies to the community nonprofit 501c3s to either improve, acquire, or build additional recreation and park facilities on Cabarrus County-owned or school-owned or city-owned or leased to any of those entities. So that's the general purpose. If you look at we had $52,657 left over after phase one, so phase two, we actually had 6 requests and for $53,558, making us, we lacked $901 being able to fund everyone fully that we had requested. As you can see on the attachment that you have, Weddington Hills PTO, $12,000 for a playground. Central Cabarrus Booster Club tennis court repair, $66.25. Patriots Elementary School, still working on their nature trail, $900. Rocky River Elementary for a Gaga pit, $16.99. Carolina Thread Trail, and this is for the parking lot out at the mills for the trail that's going in there, is $25,000. And Hartselle Athletic Association, ball field finishing equipment. The Gaga pit is a,
How did you know we were on an air?
because everyone always does. Gaga pit is it's about that size right there, and it's like kickball, but with your feet, the ball has to stay below your waist, and this would be an accessible Gaga pit. So that's what a Gaga pit is. It's about 3 or 4 years ago, they started hitting Cabarrus County. I think Weddington Hills was the first one to have one, and it's pretty cool. The kids love it.
So it's actually a pit?
It's a pit, yeah. It's about this tall. It has a door to go in, and the kids run around, and you can't touch it with your hands. It's dodgeball with your feet and below the waist.
Okay.
So with the $901 more, Hartselle Athletic Association, when they submitted their grant, said, if you don't have enough money to fund all the projects, we will gladly take the hit. So that's what the Park Commission said at the October meeting. We heard the 6 presentations, and then the Park Commission said, well, if that's what they said, then that's what we will recommend. And so that's what you have, is recommending everyone be fully funded except for Hartselle with $901 less than what they asked for, making them $55.98. Be glad to answer any questions.
Okay. Questions for Londa?
Just a comment, Londa, you know, we've been doing this, I've been doing this now, this is the 3rd time. And it seems like, you know, a lot of times we get the same people applying for these grants. You've noticed that the Hartselle
Oh, yes.
Athletic and Central, the same ones that applied the year before apply again. And it does concern me just a little that we don't have more of our schools or more non-profit entities applying for some of these grant funds. And how do you get that out to the principals? Or I'm sure you do some way, but whether they just don't want to go after the grant money or what, you know, or there's no projects to be done, which I'm sure there's plenty that needs to be done that would fit the criteria to qualify for a matching grant. And I would like to see us try to find some way, discuss it amongst the commission to see if they can come up with something to help more, you know, if you get 5 requests or 6 requests, and in this case, that's how many it looks like we might have had more than that didn't meet the criteria. But obviously, these did meet the criteria, which was scrutinized pretty heavy a couple years ago, which made it a little bit harder to get the grant. So, but I'd like to see us try to find a way to get more applications for these grants. And that's the only comment I have. It's a wonderful program, and because this is just 50% of what it costs
That's correct.
to add the amenity to the school, or like in this case, the Thread Trail, the Hartselle Athletic, which kids, you know, everywhere use all of that. So that's all I have.
Both school system superintendents have been very supportive of this program, and their office is who we disseminate the information to, and they get it to all of the principals. Various times over the years, we have gone to meet with the principals at the principals meeting, just to go over the information and let them know what it is. We were having $200,000 worth of requests back before the recession. And we didn't have $200,000, but we were having that kind of request, and then it obviously dropped off after that. And since that time, the people that I have talked with have indicated that they don't have the flow of money for the special projects or extra projects like they used to have, and that their money is spent on school, in classroom. And that's the reason that we have been told that there are not as many applications as there used to be.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is item 4.5, a resolution amending the Board of Commissioners 2017 meeting schedule.
Yeah, this is the resolution needed, needs board action to amend your approved calendar for FY17 to include or to add an additional meeting on December the 13th. This would be your fourth and final elected officials summit for this calendar year. So it would be December 13th, 2017.
Okay.
And there is a resolution attached that you would need to formally adopt to make this happen. So.
All righty, any questions? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 4.6, amendment to Caudill to the Cabarrus County Code of Ordinances, and Jonathan Marshall will talk about that.
Well, I know Chairman Morris was contacted by a citizen, and I suspect the others of you may have been also, about some concerns with the franchise agreement with the cable system. Some years ago, the state had actually preempted us and passed a statute that made the cable franchising statewide and controlled by the state rather than being controlled locally. We do have in our Code of Ordinances an article or Chapter 20 that controls the local granting of franchises. Because that had been preempted, it essentially became, had no use to us any longer, but stayed in there. So part of the confusion is this individual did also find that and saw that information. And so we were able to work with him and get the correct information, but feel like we should remove this from the Code of Ordinances. So this is a resolution just removing Chapter 20, the granting of franchise agreements for cable systems from your Code of Ordinances.
Which I think it's a very good idea. As Jonathan mentioned, the contact that I had was from someone who was unhappy with their cable bill and what they were paying for service, and indicated that the county granted that franchise. And I said, I don't think that's the case anymore. It's in your book. So I think this will help clear that up, make it a little clearer for folks. Any questions? All righty, then we'll move to item 4.7, improvement to Caudill Creek Reservoir Private Access Road, and Jonathan will also talk about that.
I'm going to let Terry pull up this map, and it may be a little difficult to go through all of it, but if you resize that a little bit for me, I'll give some of the background. Mr. Cook may want to also have some input on this. So off of Highway 73 on the west side of Caudill Creek Reservoir is a private road that provides access to an undeveloped or vacant piece of property, 2 private residences, but it also provides access to a dock and boat ramp that are used by the Water and Sewer Authority and by the deputy for Cabarrus County that patrols the lake. And then, of course, any other time they may need boat access. We have been contacted by one of the homeowners and have had interest from the second homeowner about some upgrade or some maintenance on that road, as well as some issues with the gate. There is a gate that limits access to this. So we had met with all the property owners affected, the undeveloped or vacant piece of property, as well as the 2 homeowners. One of the homeowners was not able to make it, but did participate by sending letters and emails with his input. Part of the issue has come that when turning onto this, it is currently a gravel road, so turning off of 73 onto this gravel road, because of the speeds on Highway 73, and because the person turning needs to stop before they get to that gate, they're slowing down enough, and it's causing stacking and then some rear-end accidents. So part of the discussion was moving that gate further from the road, as well as doing some improvements and paving where it intersected 73 to allow them to get off the road a little quicker. The other thing is that where you have gravel intersecting a paved road, you do get a lot of gravel coming out onto the road. So we talked about paving some portion of this road for safety getting onto and off of the road, as well as keeping gravel from getting onto Highway 73 in the travelway. So the discussion then was that we would relocate the gate and pave the road from 73 back to the point that you access the turnoff to the dock and boat ramp that we use. The remainder of the road will stay gravel. So the best location for the gate we felt was really just to restrict access to the two homeowners. So it's at the tree line. You can see a bubble approximate location of new gate. It would actually be about at that tree line there, so that it wouldn't be a way to go around it. And only the two homeowners would have access, would need that gate to prohibit or limit access to their homes. The undeveloped property would still have access to their property, but no longer would need the gate to do that. They are going through a ditch line now, so we talked about with the paving of that, putting in a section of pipe or two, so they would have just one access point and not disturb the drainage ditch any longer. Then there would also be a new just chain and poles to restrict access to the dock and to the boat ramp there. The Water and Sewer Authority also would like to put a fence that restricts access, because we do have some fishing there that is not permitted, and so that would just limit access by foot traffic. And then we would use signage to restrict access or to limit access going in, and the deputy would need to patrol it. It's all a lot of improvements, but in total, as they price them out, it comes out to about $40,000. So that was taken back to the Water and Sewer Authority Board with the idea that that would be paid out of monies. There is a Water and Sewer Authority maintains a fund that is created from the revenues by selling raw water to Concord and Kannapolis, and they'd be paid out of those funds. That board in turn asks that I come back and request that the Board of Commissioners split the cost of that, so $20,000 each to make these improvements. One of the questions I had, and this is the part Mr. Cook may want to have some input on, is why do we have any responsibility for this? And also, if we're still looking to transfer the reservoir and the property surrounding it to Water and Sewer Authority, why would the commissioners participate in this? Well, as best we can tell, and we have not found any written documentation of this, but this was installed when the lake was created. These houses existed, and rather than buying these two houses, there was some agreement to build this private access road. There is a right-of-way that goes with it, to put in that gate, and we believe to maintain this road, although there, again, is nothing written. So we feel like we're living up to an agreement that was made when the reservoir was first created. With this, we would move the gate, but turn over all future maintenance of the gate and the road beyond it to those two homeowners. So that would no longer be Wassac or Cabarrus County's responsibility. The responsibility would then turn for the rest of the road to Wassac from this point forward, that part from 73 back to the gate to maintain once these improvements were made. I don't know if you wanted to add something to that, Rich.
I don't really have too much to add to it. That was done so long ago, and it was done in connection with the acquisition of the property, not only where the reservoir is, but also the surrounding buffer property. And we did acquire, I think we originally condemned it, but we then worked out an arrangement with those property owners on the west side of the reservoir there to make sure or ensure to them access to their property once we acquired what we needed there for the buffer. So there was some agreement, like Jonathan alluded to. I don't remember all the details, but we've done that ever since the reservoir was was constructed and the property acquired.
So this will clear it up going forward.
I think we will want to put in a written agreement that goes along with it. And so that since we don't have one now, I think we need one in the future, so it's clear that they'll be responsible. Once the gate is moved, the homeowners will be responsible for the gate, because they would like to make some improvements to that, but those are not things that necessarily benefit the county or Wasac. It's really something they would want to do for their needs. So they'd be responsible for the gate, its continuing upkeep, and the road beyond the gate would be their responsibility. And then Wasac would be responsible for the road up to that point. And then we feel like with these improvements and everyone agreeing on all that, it being put in writing, that this would clear it up.
Okay, questions for Jonathan or Rich?
I have just a couple. The first one's probably the most obvious, but will be paved 16 feet wide. Is that the current width of the access road?
It is. It reduces as you get further back. I believe, as I measured, it's only 14 feet wide. And the original estimates we've gotten for paving were a little higher, but we've actually gone back and reduced that. So it'd be 16 feet wide to begin with, so you could have two-way traffic just at the beginning, but that'll probably be pared down to just the width of the existing gravel bed once you
Okay.
get off the road.
Okay.
'Cause there really isn't, again, there's only two homes, there's not a lot of traffic and not a lot of cars passing each other.
Well, and I'm in total agreement on the turning onto a gravel road and slow down and pulling gravel out on the road. That needs to be cleaned up and addressed, but just, I guess more out of curiosity, I think we need more than just an apron, but is there any particular reason that you want to go all the way to the dock in the corner? And then you can answer this at the same time, and how did you pick the location of the gate? Is there any rhyme or reason to the spot? I mean, anyways, what was the thought or reasoning behind where the gate's located?
So to your first question, we looked at paving back to the turnoff to the boat ramp and dock because that is the highest traffic area. And again, neither Wasac nor our deputy use it a lot, but that is the part that's used the most. So we felt like paving back to that, but we could shorten that, and particularly would shorten it if necessary to reduce costs. So 40,000 really is a maximum I'm giving you, and we've already gone back and looked at reducing that both in width and length to reduce the cost. But Wasac actually will continue to maintain it. So the thought is that the main part they're going to be maintaining is from 73 to that turnoff, and that the pavement would be the easier to maintain. As far as the gate and that location, we're using the topography and the tree line so that, because at some point you have a gate, but you may also have to put some fencing on either side so someone couldn't just go around the gate. Just as it is now, there's a ditch line actually that prevents people from going around it. As you get back to where we proposed locating it, there's some ditch and the tree line, but it's just really trying to look at the location that it's most effective in allowing access only to those two homes through the gate.
So if Wasac's maintaining to the end of the asphalt and we go to where you're showing it, and the homeowners are from the gate to their house, who's doing the piece in between those 2 points?
That's a good question that the homeowners have asked. Who's going to maintain that gravel from there? And I think Wasac would maintain up to the gate itself.
I would think if we're going to participate, that to me seems a reasonable burden to push on to them to say,
Okay.
hey, we're going to participate, but you get that little piece right there. So, but anyway, okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Just one question, that's for Pam. I'm assuming Commissioner's contingency for this money, or is this another pocket of money this money will come out of for the 20,000?
That would be an option. At this point, I haven't looked anywhere else at this point.
Okay.
You have 300,000 in contingency, and the City of Kannapolis schools was $85,000 of that use.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we move to item 4.8, reappropriation of funds for the purchase of land for the Carolina Thread Trail, and Pam will talk with us about that.
So there's a narrative attached to this agenda item that I'm going to try really hard not to confuse anyone. But there were two projects for the Carolina Thread Trail that were budgeted over 2 different fiscal years. And the first one was done very similar to what Londa Strong talked about. There was a matching grant program, and some funds were available, and the matching grant funds matched a project for the Carolina Thread Trail at $59,329, and the board approved that, and there was $118,000 available to cover that project. However, after the board approved that, a budget revision was never completed. Therefore, at the end of the fiscal year, that project fell into fund balance. In 2017 CIP budget, another project to purchase land for $50,000 was approved by the Board of Commissioners and placed into an account. Then in April of 2017, the benchmark contract came up to be set in place, and that was the $59,329, and there was only $50,000 that was available. I think perception was that the budget revision was not for the appropriate amount of money, so the $50,000 was increased to $59,000 through an adjustment within the project fund, and then that contract was initiated. What brings us to today is it's time to buy that land for the $50,000, and that money is not available as it was converted over for the benchmark contract. So in short, the $50,000 is necessary to purchase the land that was approved by the board, fell into fund balance back in fiscal 2016, and we're requesting to reappropriate that money to complete these projects. So it's a compound of two errors that got us to this point. The board did approve both transactions, and the request is for the $50,000 to be reappropriated out of fund balance from 2 fiscal years ago so that the land can be purchased for the Thread Trail project. And that's about as short as I could get that process out.
Any questions for Mr. Dubois? So we're just fixing sins of the past.
Yes, sir.
Russ? Okay. All right, next item, 4.9, Department of Human Services, fiscal year 19 Community Transportation Capital Grant, and we are happy to have Bob Bushy with us to talk about that as well as the next item.
Thank you. Came before you last month with the 5311 administrative grant, the 5311 capital grant, and the 5307 federal capital grant. I was told before I came from our mobility specialist from the state of North Carolina that we were eligible for 5 vehicle replacements in FY19, but that they had to come out of the 5307 capital grant. There was not enough money in that grant for 5 vehicles, so we were going to purchase 2. 2 weeks ago, after I had already came before you in October, I was informed that they were mistaken and that we could get those vehicles out of the 5311 state grant. Because it was their error, they have allowed me to reapply for these grants. So we're going to need to hold a public hearing again on the 5311 capital grant. That grant will now have 5 replacement vehicles as well as the tablets we requested, bringing its total up to $312,250 with a local match of $31,225. Because of that, that freed up the 5307 federal grant. Now that we're not using that for vehicles, we can use that to get reimbursed for our preventive maintenance for that year. So we're able to apply for the whole $155,618 that is allowed in that grant for FY19 with a local match of $31,124. So it worked out better for us. Now we have that money we can use for maintenance and still and get 5 vehicles replaced rather than 2.
Okay, questions from Mr. Bushy? All right, move to 4.10.
That's the urban grant,
Right,
the 5307 that we
that's
just
correct, yes.
discussed. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself.
Okay, so you've already done both of them, right?
Right, we will need a
And
public hearing for both of them
those
and
grants.
resolutions.
Okay, very good. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item, 4.11, Emergency Management. Glad to have Jonathan, Steve Langer, and Bobby Smith to talk about that.
And I believe, Mr. Chairman, you will have some input. I believe you may have some input on this also, since you were able to meet with the Fire Chiefs Association and discuss some of this. So Bobby and Stephen would like to go over a proposal to expand by one person, which was their original budget proposal to us. But they originally asked for 2 positions this year, and we only had 1 in the budget. But there's a need, we feel, to expand an additional person, which allows us to expand hours, but it also makes a longer shift, and we hope will help us with some staffing issues there also. So I'll let them go through the specifics.
Yeah, just a quick refresher, as we came a couple years ago and presented to start a fire manpower unit to assist our volunteer fire departments. As we all know, and you've heard us, and we sound like a broken record, I'm sorry, but the volunteers are declining and the departments are having a harder time recruiting and retaining volunteers. So we had looked at that unit. It was very successful in Guilford County. So we looked at putting that unit in place here with our goal to eventually do like Guilford and get to 24 hours. But we felt we would start with a 10-hour, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and that program has been successful. But we have finding that at a request from some of our chiefs and looking at the schedules, that if we could extend that into the weekends, that they are even having problems on the weekends getting enough volunteers to respond to the calls. So we are requesting an additional person to expand this program, and it would expand us to be able to do 12-hour shifts for 6 days and 8-hour shifts on 1 day, and that's just based on because of our timekeeping process on the 2-week schedule. We came before the fire chiefs, and again, we had them coming to us, so we did have a meeting, and Commissioner Morris and Chairman Morris and Mr. Downs and Commissioner Poole were there, and there was seemed like an overwhelming support to continue and expand this program, as each of the departments shared with us their struggle with keeping volunteers and maintaining retention. And in fact, since we've had that meeting, we've had about 4 calls that have been missed by certain departments. And again, that's no fault on those departments. They are doing the best that they can do. It's just the volunteer pool is not there. So we're looking at this manpower unit just as the next step, a stopgap to try and help with some of those response issues. And Steve, if you want to go into any more details on the schedule.
Yeah, and basically what we're looking at, and I believe a copy of it is included in the presentation, but currently we do 10 hours a day, Monday through Friday. With this schedule, we would actually be able to go to 7 days a week with a rotating schedule, with one short day, as Bobby mentioned, to be able to keep the time at 80 hours within our pay cycle. But this would give us more coverage during the day, each day, as well as extending into the weekends. And it'll allow us to be able to allow the Manpower Squad to be able to be involved with the volunteer departments a little bit more. When it comes to training, most of the volunteer departments, especially when it comes to like live burns, they do that on weekends. That's the only time that the volunteers are available. So we feel that, this will give an opportunity for the squad to also be able to get out with those departments and with the volunteers itself and conduct training.
Steve, can you, just for the benefit of the public that's watching as well as the board, just sort of a 2-minute refresher, what is the Manpower Unit and what do they do?
Yeah, so the Manpower Squad is it's exactly what it implies. It's manpower. In the fire service, you've got to have people when it comes to fires. Typically, you're looking at minimum 15 people to be able to effectively and efficiently operate on a fire scene for all the different positions that's required for NFPA or OSHA requirements. So the Manpower Squad was put in place to be able to help the volunteer departments during the time that they struggle to be able to help meet some of those NFPA standards, to have minimum personnel to be able to operate on the scene is the main purpose. So we have them responding to those manpower intensive type calls, the structure fires, pin-ins, hazmat type calls, things that require a large number of people to operate.
What do they do when they don't fight fires?
They conduct a lot of training, and they go out and help the volunteer departments as well. Recently, they went out to Reimer Fire Department and helped them do all their hose testing. All the hose on the fire trucks have to be tested annually. They went out recently and did the same thing with the town of Mount Pleasant and helped them test all their hose. And then, you know, there's a lot of hours of training that they have to get each year just to maintain the certifications that they have.
And as Steve was saying, national requirements have what's called a 2-in, 2-out rule. Before you're supposed to go in and attack a building that's on fire, you should have at least 4 firefighters there, so 2 can go in and 2 outside as a safety. Some of our departments only have 1 person during the day, so it was taking 4 departments to get to a scene before you could possibly make that attack. And now we have these 4 guys coming that can make that attack in the response zone a lot quicker, which is definitely a benefit for the firefighters and a benefit for our citizens.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this quite a bit over the past several years, and thought this was a good solution to help with the problem. I was contacted by one of the volunteer fire departments, and I went out and met with them. They were not as enthusiastic about it. They felt like they could use those additional dollars and do a better job with it. And after, you know, of course, I listened to what they had to say, and I thought, well, you know, if this is a prevailing opinion, maybe it's something we ought to talk about. I did attend the fire chief's meeting several weeks ago, and really, I thought, wow, you know, this is probably going to be a mixed reaction. It's going to be hard to decide the right way to go. But after listening to the discussion there and hearing from all of the, and I think everybody was represented at that meeting, there was overwhelming support and enthusiasm for the Manpower unit, and quite a few complimentary comments came from a number of the departments where they have had assistance with training, or like you said, the hose testing and other things. So they were very supportive of moving forward with this expansion. So any questions? Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have 4.12, Emergency Medical Services, Homeland Security Grant Program, and we're delighted to have Jimmy Lentz and Alan Thompson with us.
We thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. What we have before you is a proposal for a pass-through grant through the Homeland Security Grant Program. Jimmy Lentz, our Assistant Director, serves as one of our representatives on the Disaster Preparedness Work Group. And one of the grant projects that became available last year was an off-road utility vehicle project. And it was something that we had planned on budgeting for over the next year or so. And Jimmy, serving as a member of that committee, saw the opportunity to host this grant in Cabarrus County to allow us to go ahead and obtain what we need for local use and for regional use and statewide use. And at the same time, it provides another utility vehicle for another county somewhere in our DIPRA region. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jimmy, and he can kind of explain how that came about. What we're asking for tonight is for your approval to move forward with this grant and to approve the associated budget amendment as part of your regular meeting so that we can move through this process.
As Alan described, we were put in a position to have funding available for a vehicle that we were seeing the need come about in the next fiscal year. So with that, with us hosting it, it allowed us to keep one of the 2 vehicles purchased. It'll actually be 2 UTVs and 1 trailer. We currently have a trailer to accommodate the one we will be keeping. The trailer that will be purchased in this grant funding will be allotted to another county in the region. But with us hosting it, it just guaranteed us keeping one of the vehicles that are acquired. So it's going to be, we're going to obtain a Bobcat utility type vehicle at basically 100% grant funding.
Excellent. Questions? Sounds like a deal we can't refuse.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item, 4.13, infrastructure and asset management, leasing parking lots, and we're delighted to have Kyle Billifer to talk with us about that.
Good evening. As you're aware, we're starting in January, we'll be displacing about 128 parking spaces from the current county lots, number 3 and number 4, which are on the other side of Union, behind the courthouse. To go ahead and handle kind of that displacement of those parking spots, it was the county's intention to lease some other parking options, whether they be surface or the city's deck, to allow the employees of both the county and the courthouse to displace to those locations so that lot number 2, which is the surface parking lot right by Fifth Third's Bank here on Church Street, would remain open for anybody, any citizen headed to the courthouse, whether it be for jury duty or actually for court. We've worked with the City of Concord, and they have allotted us 50 spaces in their parking deck, and they're currently working on the memorandum of understanding to look at that, and that would be at no cost to the county. And those 50 spaces would be allotted for courthouse staff. And I've spoken with the Honorable Judge McGee, and he has made his decision on which 50 people, and 35 of them are from the clerk of courts, 10 are from the DA's office, and 5 are from mediation. So we would make up special little passes that go on their rearview mirror, and we have given copies of what those passes would look like to City of Concord's enforcement folks to make sure that they're parking in the right area. And this is on the top floor, so this is right underneath the solar panels if you've ever been to the city deck. So that provides an alleviation of actual courthouse state employees from losing the lot 3 and 4. However, we also have approximately 75 county employees that work in this building that are using different surface lots throughout the downtown area. And we have spoken with one company who owns the parking lot on Cabarrus Avenue East. It doesn't have an address, but I think it's probably 55 East. So it's pretty much almost right across from Fifth Third's Bank. There's 45 spots there, and we have spoken with them. It's a holding group out of Charlotte. We've met with them, and they are willing to lease us the spaces at about $15 per month. So it's about, the exact figure is $675 per month. So they've kind of offered that up, but one of the contingents on that was that they want something in writing and an agreement from the county that they would be able to use some of our spots at the Board of Elections at 369 North Church Street at non-peak times because the same company that owns this parking lot also owns what is soon to be a gathering place, I guess, event center across the street from the Board of Elections. And parking is an issue for them. And they kind of approached us with, hey, we could help you out with your lease in your 12 to 14 months of struggle, but we would want some sort of agreement for those spots over at the Board of Elections. I have not even discussed this with the owners of the creamery. Obviously, we do own the property and about 50 spots over there, but we also have a mutual use agreement with the owner of the creamery, and we have not discussed that with them. So it's my interpretation based on the correspondence we've had with this group that the offering of the $675 per month for this 45 space lot is contingent on the Board of Elections parking, and that would be on non-peak, which you see that often agreement is between public and private enterprises. It's not that odd. We've just never kind of gone down that road with anybody. And the third option, or well, third addition of a surface parking lot would be the Hartzell-Williams parking lot. They have spoken to the county manager, Mike Downs, and have agreed to lease us 20 spots. So my purpose for being up in front of you all tonight is to get permission to go ahead and start working on these actual leases and memorandum of understanding, and at the same time also authorize the finance director to prepare the appropriate budget amendment and related 2017 limited obligation bond project ordinance, because some of these do involve money. So I have worked with Susan on what those figures will be. So again, we will be paying for the Hartzell-Williams lease, and if we decide to move forward with this lease of this parking lot on Cabarrus Avenue, there is no funds transfer dealing with the city of Concord and their deck.
We'll get a map for you before the next meeting so that you can see where they're all at. And again, I think there's some more conversation with the other owner, and then as far as the use of our lot, is that only for the time that we're leasing his, or is that for in perpetuity? And so we've not had that conversation, or I have not had that conversation.
No,
So-
nor
so-
have I. They've been,
So-
we alluded to that, but I wanted to bring it in front of the board first before, to get permission to have those conversations and move forward on that.
That was gonna
We
be
we
my
have other
question.
options downtown too. We have some churches that are interested in doing it. There's just not enough spaces at one location. We'd have to do it in multiple locations to make it happen. So we want to give you an update on what's going on. Is it okay to continue to talk with these other folks and then bring it back to you? I'm not sure. Were you planning on bringing it back in 2 weeks, or are you next month?
I'd like to bring something back in 2 weeks. I'm assuming that I can gather kind of the approval to move forward with the city of Concord. And I wanted to get that locked down, but I would try to get some more answers from the group about the 45 space lot.
So what's the construction time on the courthouse?
12 to 14 months.
Oh, this is the parking
Parking
deck.
deck, parking deck.
I mean, so on the parking deck,
12
yeah.
to 14
Okay.
months.
And then and that was gonna be my question, was it an unlimited use for the event center?
I don't think that we're going to
Okay,
bring that to you as a
okay.
permanent use.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I guess that was my question. We're gonna pay them to use their spaces, but they wanna use our spaces for free.
Yes, again, why I wanted to bring it in front of you all,
Right.
so that I could start having some conversations with them that would kind of get down to the
Right.
nitty-gritty of it, but I did not want to have those conversations until you all had heard that.
So how, with those numbers that you added up, the 3 different locations, does that adequately replace what will be obstructed during construction?
Tough to say adequately, but I feel that is, we've provided parking spaces for all of the employees in here, and a
Right.
bulk of what's in the courthouse that doesn't already park behind the courthouse in the parking lot we've already built for them.
Yeah, it will also give the opportunity to shift all of the court traffic into the Church Street lot here. So we'll get all of our employees and the state employees out of that parking lot into other parking spaces, so that will, the plan is for solely to be for the court, people using the court building, the public.
If you've never come downtown on traffic court day, you ought to. Several weeks ago, I was downtown, and I think in that lot, it's the first time I've ever could not find a parking space at all. Every single one was full. So it does have an impact.
Just one quick question, Kyle. Will there be any type of signage to direct people, the general public that comes to, like, traffic court date and things like that for the courthouse?
I've spoken with Judge McGee, and they have revised the flyer that they send out to all jurors, and also the information that they give to anybody who's called for court, and they've removed those 2 lots. He actually just sent that over for my review late last week.
And of course, these other lots are just for employees in order to get them out
Yes.
of the public
Yes.
lots. Yeah.
Which means we'll put up signage there, and we've designed some parking passes. Our sign shop has already created them.
And we'll make sure our communication and outreach folks do a small campaign as well, as getting it out publicly to make sure that everybody knows.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Okay, next item, 4.14, Sheriff's Office, bid awards for police vehicles. Happy to have Paul Hunt with us.
Good afternoon. We had money in the budget to purchase 15 of our patrol vehicles, put them out to bid. Hillbridge Ford was actually the only company that did bid on them. and they got the bid at $24,901 per vehicle, which would be a total cost for those vehicles, $373, and, I mean, yeah, it'd be nice, wouldn't it? $373,000, $515. Also, that does not include the road tax and everything else that's included there, but that's what the actual cost of each vehicle would be. Just asking, I think I talked to County Manager Downs about suspending the rules of procedure to see if we could maybe go forward with this. If it was your pleasure tonight to do that, I sure would appreciate it.
Okay, questions?
I will make them.
Basic fundamental question, and maybe I should know it. Is there any, what's the interceptor part of describing a vehicle? Is that a special vehicle, or is that just your normal
It's a
police
Taurus, but the police interceptor, it's on a different suspension, different motor, everything. It's not something the public can just go buy. So it's all fixed up so you can do the wiring and everything else within that vehicle too.
Okay, so it's not a vehicle to do a specific task. That's the description of it being a police vehicle versus a commercial vehicle.
It's supposed to be a tougher vehicle, and it's got the higher speed rated tires on it, and the suspension is supposed to be with, if you have to go high speed, it's supposed to be able to do what it's supposed to do.
Okay, any other questions?
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. And now we would entertain a motion to approve the bid award with Hillbush Motor Company for Ford sedan police interceptor vehicles.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes.
Thank you very much. I'll stay for the next one too you've got coming.
All righty. Next up is 4.15, North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program Resolution, and we're happy to have Lieutenant Aaron Rankin to join Mr. Hunt for that presentation.
Yes, good afternoon. So I'm here before you. I was approached by the Governor's Highway Safety Program to start a 6th region in the Bike Safe North Carolina program. The current region that we fall under actually extends from Moore County to beyond Guilford County. So it's huge. So the decision was to reduce that down and make a 6th region called the Metro region. And I was approached because of the good work that we've done in Cabarrus County with the Bike Safe program, through the support of the sheriff for this program. They've paid attention in Raleigh and reached out to us and has asked for our agency, myself, to be the regional coordinator. With that, we get a starting fully funded grant of $10,000 in order to purchase a Bike Safe tent, flags, flyers, the things that we need to promote the program. Also included in that is money for in-state and out-of-state travel as need be. And that's what I'm here to talk about, that we're asking for the, passing or the signing of the resolution.
Explain the Bike Safe program.
Okay, the Bike Safe program, Governor's Highway Safety started this back in, I think, 2007. And it actually, we brought the program over from England. The idea is that it's a free program for the citizens. They come, they sign up for the program, they spend a day with our motorcycle unit, and we have a classroom and actual riding time where we discuss the safety of operating a motorcycle, the challenges involved. We also let them know about actual statistics from our state and our region on motorcycle crashes and fatalities. We take them out and evaluate their riding style out on our streets instead of a parking lot. So we actually ride behind them we do about a 30-minute ride, have lunch, go a little bit more classroom, and then we do a 1-hour long ride. So it's a really good interaction between the public and ourselves, and it's one of the few times they're not really that nervous that we're riding right behind them. So it's pretty good interaction. But this past year, we've our agency ourselves have hosted 8 classes, and we've had on average about 6, almost full capacity, which is 6 riders. So we've had 42 riders this year. This is our 3rd year of doing this. Across the state, there's been 150 classes with almost 500 riders reached. So it sounds good, but there's 150,000 motorcycles registered in the state of North Carolina. So we are working with UNC Chapel Hill, their highway safety research campus, and they're trying to look into how can we reach more folks. And currently in the region that I would be over, we only have 6 agencies that have active motor units. So we're trying to increase that so we can hold more classes and get more of our motorcycle riding folks in to increase the safety and reduce our number of crashes and fatalities.
Do you know what the number of motorcyclists would be in this region, newly created region?
No, I do not. I know what the region covers. It is Cabarrus, Iredell, Rowan, Mecklenburg, Union, Anson, Stanley, Montgomery, and Moore. So I don't have that information yet, but they're supposed to be working on that. One of the problems is some folks, they have a problem where they own a lot of motorcycles. I think that's a problem. They admit that it is a problem, but they don't ride them all. So even though there might be 150,000, that doesn't mean there's 150,000 riders. But it's still a lot of motorcyclists out there that we're not. One of our biggest issues is the majority of the people that come to the class are probably 40 and 50 years old. That's good, but that's not really who we're trying to target. And so we're trying to work on how to get the younger riders, the newer riders to come through.
And how have y'all marketed it to date?
We have, through the Governor's Highway Safety, we have, there's a Facebook page, social media. They were actually running ads on Pandora. I don't think they're doing that now because I asked most folks, how did you hear about us? And that was interesting how many heard it through Pandora. But social media is pretty much the biggest outreach right now.
Okay, any other questions? Sounds like a great program, and thank you for the efforts that you guys have put forth to receive the recognition and get this grant.
You're welcome.
Great.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we now move to the approval of our regular meeting agenda, which you all have in front of you. Does anyone see any additions or corrections that need to be made to that regular meeting agenda? I think we've included our public hearings that we've talked about tonight. So if no one sees any corrections, I would entertain a motion that we approve the regular meeting agenda, including the public hearings as presented.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. We do have need of a closed session tonight. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session per North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A 3, 5, and 6 to discuss pending litigation, acquisition of real property, and personnel matters. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. And so we are now in closed session. Thank you.